Are you ready? Cool. Continue. Cool. Hi, everyone. Welcome to my Docker Part 2 Tech Talk. I think there's some stuff, first slide anyway. Oh, sorry. Oh, okay, cool. So just clarifying on some stuff from the Q&A at the end of the last one. So I think I mentioned about there are some like container runtimes that can run Docker images. So I think I said it's based off the container runtime interface, but that was wrong, sorry. So it's actually based on the Open Container Initiative. So this is like the industry standard that's being used. So basically a few kind of container-based people came together to create this Open Container Initiative. So pretty much what I said before, where if you build using Docker, you can run out different container environments or runtimes. When they started building the Open Container Initiative, they used the Docker as kind of the base level. So pretty much that's why Docker is kind of the push forward for everything that's kind of going. So I said before that Rocket can run Docker images. Rocket doesn't use the Open Container Initiative. Basically, they use their own standard, but there is a way where they can actually run Docker containers. So pretty much the container runtime, which I talked about before, is actually a spec for Kubernetes, which is like an orchestration system. So the container runtime interface is used so they can switch between different container runtimes for orchestration. So just to clarify that, I didn't make like a mud of things when people talk about the different acronyms of OCI on container runtime interface. Cool. So pretty much I kind of carry on and bringing stuff from last time. So I mentioned about multi-stage building. Didn't want to go into depth a little bit, but talking a bit more on this one now. So with .NET containers, when you want to push it in a container or image, you have to build your .NET first before pushing it into your container. So this is kind of the Docker file that you're going to use for pretty much creating your image. So you build it and then you kind of copy the files over across. As I mentioned before, like Docker has a big caching, I guess, system in it. So what you kind of want to use is leverage the caching system to reduce the build times for the Docker images. So this is where kind of like the multi-stage building stuff comes in. So with multi-stage building, you basically create multiple stages of where your build's coming from. So with .NET, basically you create like a base build image. So in this example I'm using here, we're using the SDK build image. So basically we set as a tag build. Then what we do, similar, I think what the example I used last time for with Node is we copied over the package.json. So with .NET Core, we will copy over the solution file and the CSproj. Also, side note is this won't work with .NET Framework because .NET Core works with Linux, but .NET Framework doesn't. So carry on. So pretty much like similar what we did with Node, we basically copy over the files that references the packages. So with this part, we just run .NET restore. So with this way, we've now basically got our packages cached with the Docker layering system. So in the future, if we ever want to run builds, it will basically just restore that cache layer if it's not changed. So this is great. This will speed up any builds in the future because most of the time, we're probably not going to update packages on a very daily basis. So basically, in general, day to day, this will be better for us. After that, once we basically restore the packages, we then copy over the source code, and then pretty much we run the Docker, .NET building to publish the DLLs out. After that, when that's done, we basically create the final Docker image. So you can, that's part where you put as runtime is optional. So when I normally do it, I kind of omit that, but you can label the stages if you want to, but it makes it easier for you. So from the bottom bit where it says copy from build, so that basically says I'm copying from the build stage and into the output. And then pretty much the last part is pretty much the same as like what a normal Docker file is. You set your entry point or where it is. I guess some people kind of thinking like, how would I actually run my tests on this? So you can, if you want to, set like a stage for your testing, but the current limitation with the current build for Docker is it's difficult to extract any like XML reports. So I know with us, we use the Azure DevOps, where basically we want to push the XML reports into DevOps so we can see the results. So there is kind of like a workaround you can do where basically you could basically run the testing as like a stage, and then copy the XML report into the main runtime, and then basically run that Docker image and extract that file out. But this is kind of a bit tedious kind of things that you kind of, because all you want to do is just build the image and not run the image and then extract it and then remove the image. So what I think as part of the Open Container Initiative stuff that I mentioned, Docker has basically created another counterpart called BuildKit. So BuildKit kind of replaces the old legacy build, which is what it's got now. So with BuildKit, you can potentially extract files in certain stages. BuildKit is currently in, I think, the 19.03 version of Docker, but it can only be enabled with a flag. I think the reason why they have it on the flag is so people can actually continue using the legacy stuff. Like, supposedly it's a full working version, so it's like an opt-in, but maybe it's a discussion probably as a company if we want to switch to using the new BuildKit stuff, because I think it'd be very valuable to try and get, well, the good points of it is got better, it's newer, and it basically has some parallel building optimizations in it, which could make building Docker images a bit quicker in the future. And also having the ability to extract files out in different stages, so we don't have to kind of bloat our, I guess, running image with like reports in there, because you really shouldn't really have all that stuff in there. Cool. Pretty much another point you could probably use the multi-stage build stuff is like, I guess, bundling your client with the API. So I know a lot of us, what we do here at CoreLogic, we basically create like an API image and a client image. So basically, it's kind of like we're creating two different images. So what we can do, we could leverage the multi-stage building by actually bundling the client within the API. So I think we started doing this with Agora Loader recently. So what we basically do, because we can use Express to kind of like surface the API. So in this example, I've basically created my build for building my client. So I copy the package.json over, install the packages, and then I run my Angular build. The next part is I'm building, this is all in the same file, sorry, I had to put it aside because it's quite long. So the next part is I build the API, so copying the API, copying the JSON, the package.lock.jsons and the package JSONs in, and installing the packages. And then if you notice, I then copy the web output from the client build into the Express folder. So for that means I don't have to worry about building multiple images. So it just basically makes it a lot nicer. It reduces the amount of images having to have it, and then my client's pretty much surfaced inside my API. It just makes it just streamlines the whole thing a little bit more. I don't have to worry about, well, we might need config files for like authentication, but we don't have to worry about having to have weird routes or configuring routes. So the next part is there's like Docker file tips that are pretty much like going to be useful, I guess, when you write your Docker files. So like I've been talking about a lot of the caching stuff. So if you're building like your Docker file, like if you need any certain dependencies, like I know with the Angular stuff, you're probably going to need to install Chrome into your Docker image potentially, or anything else. So in a Docker file, you're going to probably run apt-get update and apt-get install. So running each of these would be like a different layer. So as an optimization to kind of make it a bit better, you probably want to run it on one line. So in the second part, if you're ever doing like any apt-get, it's best to try and do it in one line, because this will make it all in one layer now. And then basically another thing that kind of speed up your Docker. Other tips probably going to say is something that we don't really do as a whole, like a few, I guess, this products that I'm on, I've been experimenting to try and remove root access from Docker images. So by default, when you're running your Docker, you basically run it as root level. So it's super user that you're running as. And this, if anyone kind of gets access to your container from outside the world, they basically got root access to that box potentially. Like it's not full root access, like you have to do any special things to get outside the container, but you want to reduce as much access as you can for that person if he does get into your container. So in Node, basically, I think Node images, they do include like their own Node user, which is kind of what I'm using this example, but potentially you have to make your own one. But in this example that I'm going to show here is, so what I've done here is I've made app folder, and I've basically set ownership for that folder to be only basically accessed for that Node user. So if you do see the line, it says chown, node. So node is like a user and a group, and I'm setting it on that folder. So with this next part, as the user node is basically I'm setting the currently I'm going to set the main user's node, which is the one that's already available. Like I said before, if there isn't a user in there, you probably want to create a user prior to that. The next part is pretty much the same as most examples is where I'm copying the files across. There is like a flag you can use for it. So in this example here, I'm using the chown flag. So basically for that file, I'm setting it to that restriction to the node user and group. And then pretty much the same as afterwards, where basically most of them you set your entry point at the end. So this kind of basically sets the whole basically application to that specific user, and you won't have super access user in there. When building these kind of like restriction level, you probably gotta have some things in mind when you're building it. So when building this, you're not going to have any access to ports below 1024. So I know there's quite a few images that we've built. I think we've set our APIs on port 80. You got to remember, if you're making it, you can't set the port 80. You're going to have to set it anything higher above 1024. And then potentially use like traffic afterwards to kind of, I guess, reverse proxy that back out to port 80. Other things you kind of might need to take note of is if you're converting an existing Docker file to use it, and if you're using like mounted volumes, you got to make sure those files are not set to root, because stuff that we've tried before on Verge, if you got a mounted volume, is basically if those files have been written as root access, you don't have access to read or write to those directories. You're gonna probably if you got like backers, if you're gonna have to change later, you're gonna have to manually go to that folder that you mounted and change all the ownership to what that ownership is for the Docker file. So those are things you kind of have to keep in mind. But if you're creating, I guess, a brand new Docker file and you do have volume, just make sure that the volume that you're mounting when you make a directory is set ownership to the user that you're running that Docker file on. Other things, what was it? Well, I think it was the last time when I spoke about making a Docker file to try and avoid using the add command. So basically, most of the time you're going to use copy to copy files, but I guess if you're doing any special things with like tar or gzip files, the add command basically automatically unzips those files for you. So instead of you having to write probably 3 lines of code where you're going to have to unzip the file or copy it across, unzip the file, and then delete the file, the add command kind of streamlines that process a little bit. So you don't have to probably waste 3 layers. You can just have it in 1 layer. Another thing that the add command potentially also does is you can actually download files of it. So like another thing is kind of a streamlined saving process. So normally if you do have a base image, it potentially might not have curl, so you can't download the file. So it'll probably be 3 steps you're going to have to make. With using add for that, it will actually download the file into that directory. One thing about using add with the URLs is if it's a tar file, a gzip file, it doesn't automatically unzip it. So I think that's the thing I say, like it does automatically unzip if it's a local file, but if it's a remote one, it doesn't automatically untar and gzip it. So yeah, this is quite a short. Is it a short talk? I don't know, but basically, this is all the tips I kind of give. I don't want to go too much on like other stuff like orchestration and Docker Compose. I kind of want to kind of tighten it, like I guess a slice of what we're doing. So I guess the next one I'll probably talk about more about orchestration, Docker Compose, maybe potentially dabble about Docker Swarm and Kubernetes. But yeah, if there's any any questions or anything, yeah, happy to answer.
Just one thing on that. build kit. It's something we're looking at as well. So what a really neat feature on it is it's got distributed caching. So one issue we have with our build servers, they take up too much space. So I think Andy prunes alt cache about 3 times a day. So when you're doing your npm installs, it's not using cache. But yeah, build kit's got a neat feature as in it actually uploads the intermediate images up to Docker Hub. So it's as if you're pulling it from a base image. So all your build machines can use the same cache, which looks interesting. And yeah, just on, you mentioned about that Chromium. We have actually got an eTech image.
Yeah.
That's called Chromium and that installed. Just posted links in there. I think Tom's made an update to it before to change base node image. But yeah, if you need to change or update that, if you just push a pull request into GitHub, it automatically builds a new image, and that it's all linked up into Docker Hub. But yeah, that image is pretty good for doing Angular tests, for the Karma test runner and Chrome launcher. It's got everything set up ready for it.
Yeah, we use it live on LenderHub, I think.
Yeah, I think it's using a few. I think US Core uses it as well now.